Hi everyone, welcome to my second video with My Mini Factory. Yay, welcome back. Hey, for anyone who doesn't know, I'm Angeli, aka Geek Girl Bookworm. You can find me everywhere online under that name. You can also find me in the link that's scrolling on the screen here. I'll put it in the chat, linktr.ee/geekgirlbw. You can find me on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. I have a Patreon for my podcast live show that started next month called Small Scale Chatter. It's a miniatures community-based podcast and video cast. You can also find me on Ko-fi, which is more revolving around my miniatures and commissions and things. So yeah, do come and join me in those places. Come follow me on Twitter. Today's video is looking again at My Mini Factory, which we did last time. And this time we're actually going to be focusing on the My Mini Factory Plus, which is the subscription service that My Mini Factory offers. So you can join myminifactory.com for free, and you get access to all the STL files that are on there and seasonal discounts that sometimes happen and sales. But by joining the My Mini Factory subscription service, not only are you supporting the community of 3D printing artists, you are also given a whole load of really cool offers and savings on the STL files from their designers, as well as offers on 3D printers, 3D printing material, and a bonus 10% discount on all the files. It's really cool. Do go check them out. I put the link down below as well for My Mini Factory Plus. As well as those really cool offers, you also get a discount on these really beautiful Da Vinci brush set that they offer, and also some Vallejo Game Inks. And the reason I bring those up is because that's what we're going to be talking about today. So Vallejo Game Inks are a paint set that is a little bit different and maybe a little bit scary for some people. If you've not used inks before in your painting, they may be a bit new and a bit not what you're used to. So I'm going to show you some ways today of how you can use those inks in your painting to enhance your paint and to give you different results. So I'm doing a whole load of different bases. These bases I also downloaded from myminifactory.com via a designer called Duncan Shadow. I will also put his link in the bottom here for you as well. He makes some really cool D&D monsters and RPG NPCs and things. He does some really beautiful anthropomorphic warriors and rogues and wizards and things. So there's an otter wizard. I mean, what else do you need to know? But as well as that, he also does monthly bases, so based on a particular theme. So I've downloaded a whole load of those and printed those out at different sizes, and I'm going to use those to show off the Vallejo inks, and all throughout I'm going to be using the Da Vinci brushes as well. So they're a synthetic fiber brush, but they have a lovely point on them. They're very nice and soft, and I use them for all of these, and after cleaning them, they still had a really lovely point to them. I highly recommend you getting those within your subscription as well. But let's take a look at the first one. So the first one I looked at was wooden bases. So in this video, I did two different types. So in this one, I pre-painted the wooden base. So I made it look how I sort of wanted it to look using various paints. And I'm going to create a glaze using the Vallejo inks. So you can see that I use Insta Paints Water Plus, which I recommend as a way for thinning down your paints, but it also is very good at making glazes. So this is the Game Ink in Skin Wash Brown. So what glazes do is they help to blend the your layering so that it looks more natural. So if you do have a bit of trouble with wet blending, this will help to blend that in for you. So this is the type of consistency that you want for a glaze. So it's thicker than a wash. You've got a high pigment still. And the good thing about using inks for your glazes is that they already have a really high pigment count. And you're just going to brush it on top of all of the paint. And it's going to settle into the paint, and it's going to help those highlights and those lowlights to blend into each other and look more natural. So you just paint it over the whole thing. And with glazes, you can do glazes multiple times. So you don't have to just put one on. If you want it still a bit darker, you can go over again with another glaze. Sometimes you use the same paint as that you've already used within this, but because we're using the inks, I wanted to show you that you can create a really nice glaze with just an ink straight out of the bottle and a bit of Water Plus. I'll put links for Water Plus as well. I've just gone around the whole base. I will show you the finish article in a moment where I do sort of finish up the base. I do like a very matte black ring around the bottom of my bases. That's my personal preference. There, I'm just filling in the gaps there. You don't want it to be too thick over everything as well, so just make sure that it's all even across the whole of the paint. Done. And the second one I'm going to do is a second wooden base, but it's going to go straight onto the base color. So I've primed it with an off-white, and I'm going to show you how the difference is using the same color ink, but straight out of the bottle, straight onto your prime. And the difference is, you'll see there. So I will say, when I'm using inks, I always use the little plastic bits that your miniatures come in. When you buy like a Reaper Mini or something, comes in like the plastic thing. Keep those, because they're great little boxes for when you're using inks and creating glazes and things. So this is straight ink, no Water Plus, no sort of thinning it out or anything. And you can see with a light base behind it, it goes on really nice and smooth. And it sort of sits in all of the gaps, shows off the gaps in the wood there, shows the grain. Just layer that over. And again, I've just gone around the whole base. I'm going to tidy up with a black ring around it as well. I'll show you in a moment. These inks, when they're straight out, they take a little while to dry, which means that they're really good at like blending in some colors. So if you've got this brown and you think, actually, you know what, I need just a little bit of, it needs a little bit lighter color in there and some highlights, it needs some darker colors in there. While it's wet, you can blend it very well with other colors. So I've got a red and a yellow that I'll be using just to add into areas, just to show you how you can blend it in quite easily. So you don't need very much, and keep the brown that's already on your brush to help with the blending. And I've just put in the red into some of the cracks and into just on some of the edges of the wood there, just to give it a little bit of shadow in some places. And the same with the yellow, it's going to add some little highlights. Again, you don't need very much, right? So there's those two. So this is the finished product. So this is after they've dried. I've just taken a photo with them. There's no photoshopping on these or anything. It's just I've finished up the base and just tidied up the ring around the base a little bit. So this is the glaze. As you can see, it's helped to sink some of those highlights into the finished design, as it were. And this is with the ink straight over the white, so it's a lot darker, so it looks like a much more varnished wood. You can see I've just tidied up the bottom of it. Just that's personal preference. I like to have a black ring around my bases. So that's the first one. And so you can see I used that was the thickest, there we go, brush in the Da Vinci brush set. Apart from the dry brush, which I actually don't use in this at all. And that's mainly because of the size of it. It's quite big. It's perfect for bigger terrain pieces, and I'll probably show it off doing some Citadel dry brushing later on, but not in this video. So the next one we have is some skulls. So with this one, so these are just like a whole pile of skulls on a base. It's quite hard to distinguish where they are within it. So I'm going to make a very simple wash. So again, with the ink and Water Plus, I'm going to use a lot more Water Plus this time than I did for the glaze, because you want it quite thin. You don't want it that thick consistency. So you can see here that the consistency is a lot thinner. It's a lot lighter. So just going to dab that wash into all areas of the skulls and help to bring out some of the detail there. It's quite light, and also at this point it also looks quite orange. So I'm once I put this coat over, I'm going to add just a little blob of black game ink just to darken it up and add just a little bit of additional depth to the wash. Also, this video isn't sped up, but it looks like I'm doing this very, very fast. I'm like speedy. It's exciting. So yes, a little bit of black just into the wash that I've already created, just a tiny smidge. Just make sure that it's watered down enough. And that black added to the sort of orangey brown makes a darker brown, so it's not going to be completely black, but it will also blend in. Because it's all still very wet, it's very easy to mix the colours and to blend really well with inks. So although they're a slightly scary product for new painters, they're actually really good for helping you get used to the idea of blending and how colours can blend and mix together. They're a really nice set, and I do like using inks a lot. I especially like them for enhancing colour and bringing out the best, like in the tones of colour. So that's the skulls. So they were nice and easy. So again, I just based them with a off-white, and this is the finished result. So once it's dried, all I've done is done a very, very quick little dry brush over the very tops of the skulls, just to bring out a bit of that detail, and then just blacken the base again. But as you can see, it works very, very well as a very quick, easy wash if you need a very specific colour for your wash. So the next one I'm going to be doing is some rocks on a bit of grass. And this, I just want to show you how you can add shadow and depth to your paint. So I've already painted the rocks and I've already painted the ground. But now I'm just going to show you how you can add shadows with a thin brush. So this is the small Da Vinci, and I'm just going to go in with its neat out of the bottle and just start adding some shadow. And I'm not being too precious about it. I'm not worrying too much. I'm just going around. This is where I sort of want the shadows to be, because it's going to stay wet for a while, which means I can then start doing some wet blending. So I go in with just this is just a neat black ink, and then I'm going to do some mixing to start adding some depth to the mud around it and make them look like they are part of the same bit of nature, rather than these are some rocks on some mud. So make them one thing. And this is what inks are really good for, is this shadowing and adding depth to your paint. And at the moment it's, it looks scary because it's just like really dark, but we're going to start blending in a moment, so don't worry. So add in a bit of the brown again, keeping the black that's already on my brush still on there, so I'm not washing the brush at any moment, because I want all of those colours that I'm using to mix into each other. I'm not looking for a line of brown, a line of black. I want them to merge into each other and become one thing. this also shows you how you can make bases like really, really quick. I think that if you spend a lot of time on a miniature, like you need to have a really nice base for it to go onto. Like just a boring base it does your mini an injustice, but it doesn't mean that you have to spend like hours and hours and hours on a base. You can 3D print these really, really cool dynamic bases, paint them up, and it makes your life just that much easier. So I've now got all of these bases that I've painted up, so I can easily slot some minis onto them that I've painted up already. And it hasn't taken me very much time. Like, you know, I did all of these paints in one evening just together, just sat down, and, you know, an hour later I had everything that I needed. Not even an hour, a little bit less. Well, we'll see how long it is, because it's going to be the same length of time as this video. Yeah, so this is a little bit of dark green. So it's a black green that's in the set. And I just, because, you know, mud isn't just a flat brown color. It's not just a couple of browns. There's bits of greenery in there. There's bits of moss, and there's bits of leaves and detritus that are sort of being reabsorbed into the ground. So I want to add a bit of green color into that. I'm going to add a little bit of green over some of the rocks as well to make it look like they're all part of the same thing. And yeah, like when you're doing stuff with nature, like I never try and be like too precise, because nature isn't precise, it's messy. So I've just added a little bit of water to my brush, just going to thin down the brown part there, because I want to just go over some areas of the rocks and the mud to sort of blend it all into one thing. So I've just watered it down just a smidge. So yeah, a little bit of brown over the grey, and when it dries, it will look more natural then. Perfect. So this is the finished product. I put some tufts on it. I'm a big fan of tufts. I love tufts. Anyone who knows me and knows my painting, like I have just a massive, massive box that is just full of tufts. I think they are wonderful, wonderful things for any miniature painter to have. So definitely put some tufts in your life. I have like a quality street tub just full of tufts. Right, okay, next one then. So the next one we're going to be looking at doing very simple, very quick lava base. So this is a base again from Duncan Shadow, just a little bit of rock, and I'm just going to show you how to very, very quickly make a lava base. So because they're inks, you need to start with the lightest color first. They don't layer up well light onto dark. So when you're like doing layering with paints, you would go the shadows, the middle, the lightest. You have to do the opposite with inks, because they don't go over darker colors as well. So start with the lightest color, so the yellow. And then I'm going to be using the orange, the red even, to create an orange, and then just add a little bit more red each time to make the red for the lava. Get that orange that you want. And then you just start dabbing it in. Like, again, it's nature. Don't be precise with it. Just start dabbing away. Like, load up that brush. And while everything's wet, you just want it to all go on there together. You can tell that I sort of grew up in an art attack sort of time frame. Just like, yeah, make a mess, push it on. Yeah, my painting has never been neat. It's very much like everything needs to be wet and flowing and good movement. But that's why these inks work very well for my painting style. Yeah, so you just dab it on and mix it around, and gradually move up to the very dark, to the red. So you just want to start building it up, building up, building up. Always moving, always making sure that it stays wet. And then once it's dry, we'll do the painting of the like the lava rocks around there, and just finishing off the base as you do. One thing that I don't show on here that I did do afterwards is that Instapaint do a Gloss Plus medium that you can add to your paints. I added it once the ink was dry. I added it straight onto the lava to give it a sort of glossy look. Here we go. So that's it finished there. Lovely. So got two more to go, and that's fine. We're at 20 minutes, so yay, it's going really well. Well done, us. So the next one is I'm going to be looking at creating your own contrast paints with the Citadel contrast medium and the Vallejo Game Inks. So you can create your own contrast using these inks, as long as you've got the medium, which sort of is a little bit thicker than the glaze that we made earlier. So I use a scientific pipette. You can buy them, from Amazon and things, like in big bulk. But I find that they work best for getting the right amount out. So dip your brush in each time, because if you haven't cleaned it properly, then you can risk adding colour to your contrast medium. So using the thickest brush, give it a mix around and get it to the right consistency. So you want to get like a really nice pigment color in there, because obviously the thing about contrast is they have a high pigment, so that when it falls, it coats everything in the green, in this case color, but then also adds a darker, richer color into the grooves. So you see that's what we're doing here. So painting the base a green color. Halfway through this, I decided actually it should be more like muddy, and I add some brown into it, just to mix it up a little bit more. And again, just to show how easy it is to blend these colors and mix these colors together. Obviously, you don't have as huge a range as you would with paints, because obviously you can add you can add some white to it to make it, like, there isn't a white ink that you can add to make it that little bit lighter. So there are some drawbacks to the amount of blending that you can get, the amount of different variations of color, but there are ways around it. You can add, as long as you understand color theory and you have your color wheel, you should be able to create most things. So you can see I'm dabbing it on quite thick here. I am in a moment going to clean up all of those massive pools by cleaning the brush, drying it very quickly, and then having the brush soak up. So you want a dry, clean brush, and you just put it onto the ink and it just soaks up, so you can see there. And then I wash it, clean it, and do some more until I've got rid of all the unwanted, unnecessary pools. And it especially pools around, in this particular one, around the pumpkin and the pumpkin leaves. It's a little bit of a nightmare, because they slope in, the ink naturally wants to like run into those bits. But yeah, I just keep adding and mixing the colors until I get the right color that I want. And then do exactly the same thing for the pumpkins. With red and the yellow, I make an orange contrast. And to finish it off, I just added some of the ink straight from the pot in little green dots on the pumpkins to give them a little bit of a boost of colour and pop. And yeah, I'll show you the finished product now. So here are the pumpkin pots finished. So little pumpkins, little pumpkin patch, again some tufts because I love tufts. But yeah, they look pretty cool. And the final one I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to use them to make your own rust. So if you are someone who likes technical paints, you can use the inks plus some additional stuff from Instar to make rust. So using the red and the brown and a little bit of yellow, I sort of make a dark orangey colour. And I'm going to use this stuff called Matte Plus. This can be used to create the perfect sort of paint consistency for dry brushing, but it can also be used to make some really cool technicals. So I get this sort of orangey rusty colour. I've already painted with a metallic over these scrap bits of metal, so they have their metallic-y look already. And then I'm just going to be dabbing this rust onto the metal. In some places I'm going to leave it quite thick, so I'm going to like blob really big heavy blobs of the paint to dry, and in some places I'm going to have it quite thin, so I'm going to like just dabble it around. So there's going to be different areas of rust where it's going to be thicker or thinner. And so you can see here I've made like a really thick bit with just a little bit of colour and more of the Matte Plus, and just like adding that in for a little bit of extra depth. And again, it's natural, it's nature, it doesn't have to be precise, and you know, don't overthink where you're going to put these things. Just, you know, let your paintbrush sort of do a bit more of the talking. And so you can see as well that these paintbrushes are holding up really well. I have not been particularly gentle with them. I'm not a gentle brusher. You know, I do like to sort of rub them in places, and they've held up really well through all of this. And the way I clean them at the end is clean cold water. I have just a vegan, no chemical sort of soap. It's normally like a hand soap, it's in a bar. I just have one of those, and I use clean water, and then I rub the brush in this vegan soap, wash it again until it comes out clean suds. And that's how I clean my brushes, leave them flat to dry. And yeah, I checked on these this morning, and they still look brand new. So despite my heavy-handedness with them, they were okay. So this is just some straight brown that I'm just adding into like the really deep crevices, just to add a little bit of shadow. So no Matte Plus on this, just straight ink mixed in while it's still wet, just to add a little bit of shadow. So finished product. So this is, so after it's dried, again, I've not done anything to it. I've just let it dry and then cleaned up the bottom with a brown layer. So you can see here, it's sort of got these different layers of where the thickest parts were, where it's the lightest to the thin parts, and you can see it looks like a very natural rust that's gone on, and that's just with some inks and this Matte Plus. So yeah, that's exciting. That is various ways. So 6 different ways, 7 different ways, six videos, 7 different ways that you can use the Vallejo Game Inks that you can get as part of your My Mini Factory Plus subscription to create a whole range of different elements and techniques to add to your repertoire. And they're good for bases, but they're also good for like normal models as well. You can create these for big models, for small models. It doesn't have to be bases. I just use bases because bases are really easy because you normally just focus on one thing when you're doing a base. Yes, so in the last video as well, before I go, I talked you through how to use My Mini Factory, where to find your files, how to slice your files ready for printing. And I wanted to just show you what I printed off. So it's at 150% miniature, so we scaled it up and I printed it out. And in my next video, we'll be doing some painting. Yay! So this is the miniature that I painted. So you can see that I've added it to a base. The white underneath there, that's just Milliput epoxy resin putty that I've just used just to blend it all to the base, because obviously the base isn't designed for it. The base is, again, a Duncan Shadow one, but it's not designed for this particular mini. But I wanted, because she's all like this sort of cyberpunk robo arms, I wanted to have like a sort of scrapyard base for her. But she printed up really well, as you can see this close up here. So I printed her all in one piece. She's solid, so she's got no hollowness to her. I wanted her quite sturdy and quite firm. As you can see from my painting, I'm quite heavy-handed. But yeah, so in the next video, we'll be starting looking at painting her up. So we're going to look at some metallics and how to use those inks to enhance your paints. So the one thing I didn't show you is that if you are using a paint, doesn't matter who it's by, be it Vallejo, be it Scout 75, be it Instar Paint, Reaper, you can use these inks to then enhance the color that's already in the pigment of the paint. So I'll be showing you how to do that whilst I paint up our armorer. Thank you so much for coming along and for paying attention all the way to the end. Yay! It's really nice to have you here again. Pretty new to this whole not live video thing, so very kind, comments are always welcome. I do listen to what people say in regards to how my setup is. I'm no computer whiz, so sorry about that. If you're like, hey, Angeli, you should do all these things. I don't have the technology to do such things, but I like learning. So sorry, I think I just lost you there for a second there. Yay, technology. As she says, I'm rubbish at technology. Her technology crashes. Thank you, everyone, for coming along. Please do visit myminifactory.com. Check out the STL files there. Check out My Mini Factory Plus, the subscription service. It really is a really great deal, especially if you're doing loads and loads of printing and you've got loads of really cool designers that you want to get stuff off of. The website gives like 90% of the sales to the designers, so you're really helping out artists within the community as well. You can visit me everywhere online as Geek Girl Bookworm. I'll put my links up. I have Patreon and Ko-fi. I also have an Amazon affiliate list, so if you are interested in any of the equipment that I use in any of these videos, you can find it on my Amazon site as well. Do pop along there. I get a very small percentage, which I instantly use to put back into my hobby. So that goes to pay for more pipettes for me and more brushes. So yes, please help out if you can. And do stay tuned for Small Scale Chatter, my new podcast and video cast coming in March. See you later.